الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
قل أعوذ برب الناس.
Howdy, and give you an update on how things have been going. I saw Jesus in a dream recently, so that's something I want to come back to and share in just a moment. It's something that I've never seen before. A lot of people who are leaving Islam and become Christian do so because they see Jesus in a dream or a vision. And I did receive dreams and visions when I was seeking the truth about Christianity and Islam, but I never actually saw Jesus in a dream or a vision. I saw things that led me to the gospel.
So in this video, I'll be exposing my idiot, the false potato, through his friend right here. As you can see, Trust God 1769 or 1769. Now this guy is the friend of the false potato, and the false potato defends him, and he also defends him. As you can see, he's got like some videos about the false potato. He actually posted the video. It was why Muslims aren't illiterate. This one is actually, he took it from the false prophet's channel and he used it. So they help each other, and they both follow David Wood, right? And David Wood has a friend that passed away, was called Nabeel Qureishi. Now the thing is, these people defend them and they don't speak against them when they are lying, right? Nabeel Qureishi saw a vision of Jesus, which this guy right here, Trust God, says that Jesus looks white in all of the people's dreams, in the majority. So this is why they draw him white, right? And this is how Jesus looks like, he says, right? The funny thing is that Nabeel Qureishi disagrees with him on that. As you can see, this is his photo right here. He places a photo of Jesus. I told him, why do you post a photo of Jesus? He says, well, everyone sees him this way in the dream, which is really funny because before he had a previous photo, now he changed to another photo. And as you can see a little bit here, there is like a Jesus here, right? On a cross. So now, we will actually see what is said here. And we will actually see what Nabeel Qureishi saw, because this guy here, Trust God, he supports Nabeel Qureishi because Nabeel Qureishi supports David Wood, right? And when he was alive, both used to make videos against Islam, right? Him and David Wood. So we're gonna see if this guy is truthful and a liar, or a liar, right? And we will see what the description is, which is actually really funny because many Christians have seen Jesus black, but he says no, the majority have seen him white, the way that he is in that picture. So let's see what Nabeel Qureishi will say, and this will be the end of the Trust God guy forever. Like, his career is gone right now, which is really funny because I believe guys, that the false potato believes in Jesus because he believed Jesus was black. He believed Jesus was black like him, because if Jesus was not black, right, the false potato will not become Christian. He will not accept the fact that Jesus is white. This is what the false potato will do, because false potato is black, and I know he loves black people and he's racist against white people, but inside him he doesn't show it, but outside he doesn't show it. Okay, so let us see what Nabeel Qureishi will say, which this guy agrees with. But Nabeel Qureishi will say something different about how he saw Jesus, right? Something different. And this guy, Trust God, he tells me that whatever the Bible describes Jesus, this is how we draw him. This is how we draw him, which is funny because even if the Bible describes him and you haven't seen him, you will not know how his facial features will look like exactly 100%. It is impossible, right? So let us watch and see how this is really funny.
Related to Islam, what about Jesus coming to Muslims in dreams? Is that real? Is that real conversion? Isn't that demotivating for missions?
I don't know whether it demotivates or not. I think it deflects. It deflects the way you pray. I've heard people pray, oh God, give them dreams. Oh God, give them dreams. Because they've heard stories that somebody had a dream, and there are different kinds of dreams.
So I was thrilled to have seen Jesus in a dream. I'd been praying for it. I'd been asking for guidance. And I think I got some, so I'll share that with you in just a moment. Now, onto this story about having seen Jesus in a dream. Just to give you a little bit of background, I have felt at a loss for guidance and for direction on specific issues for the past few weeks, actually for the past couple months. Kind of just sitting here and languishing, really. Just praying every day, reading scripture, memorizing scripture, having people visit me, people praying over me, me going to people's places and to churches to pray. But as far as what do I do about the health situation, not many choices for one, but also not much direction. And so I've just been praying to God for direction, for guidance on what to do and how to move forward. And one thing that I really wanted to see was a dream or a vision of Jesus. I'd actually been asking for it because I wanted to hopefully be able to actually ask Jesus questions and get his guidance. And so when I got this dream, it was something that I had been praying for. So I know some people will throw that in the mix and say, oh, well, you were expecting it by faith, so Jesus appeared to you. Other people will take the exact same piece of data and say, oh, you wanted it so bad that your mind produced an image of Jesus for you.
I got no problem with somebody having a dream that a redhead white guy shows up at his door with a book in their hand with a message they need. That's a glorious dream, because they're going to get saved when the redhead knocks on the door, white face, book in the hand. Whoa, I had a dream about you, and they believe in Jesus. That's very different than having a dream of Jesus coming to them in their head.
Other people will take the exact same piece of data and say, oh, you wanted it so bad that your mind produced an image of Jesus for you.
That I'm suspicious of. Big time, because of reasons I'll give you tomorrow, of why I think the gospel needs to be heard. How shall they believe unless they hear? And how shall they hear without a preacher? And how shall they preach unless they be sent? That's a pretty significant argument in Romans 10. And it doesn't say, well, they'll hear because they'll get dreams. So that argument is invalid. So let's be careful when we think dreams that we don't think replacing the biblical paradigm of how people get saved.
Take it however you will, but I had been praying for a vision or a dream of Jesus, and I got a dream. And in this dream, I'm sitting at a balcony of some large indoor structure. It could have been kind of like a mall. I don't think it was a mall, but if you've ever been to a mall where there's multiple levels and you can look down from a higher level into a lower level, like there's a mall here in Houston called the Galleria, and you can look down at an ice rink from a higher level. It was that kind of a balcony, a glass balcony, railing kind of thing. And I was sitting there waiting for Jesus. I knew that I was about to meet him. And then Jesus appears to me. And I've always wondered what Jesus looks like. Whenever someone tells me that they had a vision or a dream of Jesus, I ask them what Jesus looked like. And of course, different people say different things. And so you can interpret that however you want to. For me, the way he appeared to me was striking, very striking. He wasn't glowing. Some people say they see a lot of light. I didn't see a lot of light. I saw a man in his young 30s, which was striking to me because whenever I see pictures of Jesus, if you look at paintings or if you look at artist depictions, almost always, subconsciously, I don't know why, but they depict him as a middle-aged man in his 40s. But in my dream, I saw a man who was exactly my age, looked like my peers.
So here Nabeel Qureishi says, the one that's friend of Trust God, he says that Jesus does not look like the Jesus in the pictures. This is what exactly he said. While this Trust guy who follows David Wood and Sam Shamoun and follows his friend Nabeel Qureishi says the opposite, says everyone sees him the way that he is in the pictures, which is clearly false. Now, I know what he's going to say. He's going to be like Rob Christian. I'm going to say this like Rob Christian. Whenever he loses a debate, he says, are you calling Tafsir Ibn Kathir a liar? which is really funny because Ibn Kathir is not ma'soom, is not infallible, right? So he can make mistakes at points, right? So it does not mean he lied. He does his own ijtihad. But according to Rob Christian, only if Christians have different opinions, even Catholics have different opinions, and everyone, it's alright, right? They all have different opinions, which is accepted. It doesn't really matter. But if Muslims make their own opinion, no, these people are liars. Don't trust them because each one has his own opinion. He changes that, which is clearly very funny because in Islam, we have ijtihad, something called ijtihad, which means to struggle through the text of the Quran and Sunnah to find out truth, and through transmission isnads, correct isnads. So you can see clearly that Trust God guy was lying, and Nabeel Qureishi proved him that he's a liar. So what happened, Trust God? You're done, boy.
Quite handsome, on the lighter skin side, but not white. Dark eyes, short hair, short beard. And he gave me, and he was wearing a white robe, with a green sash. Now it was a hunter forest green, a darker green, and the cloth kind of had embedded in it like the texture, the shape of the texture. I don't know how to describe it, but it was kind of diamond patterned, the sash. There weren't pictures of diamonds, but that was kind of the texture of the cloth. And so when he comes to me, he gives me this huge hug. I mean, it was just a big embracing hug, and I felt very loved, very, very loved in the dream.
Now here, Nabeel Qureishi commits a mistake because he goes against his Bible and lies against his Bible, since he said that Jesus he looked handsome, right? Let's look at Isaiah chapter 53 verse 2. What does it say about Jesus? For he grew up before him like a young plant, and like a root out of dry ground. He had no form or majesty that should look at him, and no beauty that we should desire him. So Jesus had no beauty. He was not handsome at all. He was disfigured. According to many of the Christian scholars, they say that this verse clearly says that Jesus was actually disfigured, right? And now he says Jesus does not have long hair. Nabeel Qureishi says Jesus does not have long hair. But Trust God guy was saying that this, and also Nabil, he says that Jesus was not white as in European, right? He wasn't like, a white person, right? He was light skinned but not white, right? Which basically means can look like a Middle Eastern, right? An Arab, could look like a North Indian, right? Could look like an Iranian, a Persian, could look Turkish, for example, right? These types of things, right? Not really white, but like light-skinned, right? So what I mean is that you should see that they're going against their Bible and they're lying to you, right? And they're also, the Trust God guy, he said that Jesus had long woolly hair, right? But now before I go there, Trust God guy, every picture, every church you go into, every place you go into, you see Jesus pictured with long hair, right? Long hair and a very short beard, and he looks handsome, while the Bible goes against it, says that he's not handsome. So what they're trying to do, guys, is they're trying to show you Jesus in a handsome way to make people, to incline people towards him. They want to create something that's beautiful. They want to look at it and they want to love it, and they want to imagine that Jesus looked like that and he's beautiful, and they want to follow that beautiful looking guy, right? But if they put like a person like looks like he's disfigured and no one desires him and he has no beauty, everyone will run away from him. They'll say, this is the devil, this guy has no beauty, let's run away from him, right? This is what they do. Now let us go and see in Revelation chapter 1 verse 14 to 16, King James Version. It says about Jesus, his head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. Now Trust God is saying the Bible describes Jesus, we follow the way. Okay, does Jesus have eyes that look like flame of fire? No, he doesn't. That's a metaphor, right? Okay, but if it's a metaphor, how do you know what color his eyes are and how his eyes look like? They don't look like a flame of fire, right? They don't. How would you know? How do you know what color his eyes are? And his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace. It's very funny. And his voice as the sound of many waters. And he had in his right hand 7 stars. Are you really serious? Why don't you see people drawing Jesus in his right hand 7 stars, carrying 7 stars, which is really funny, right? It's really funny. This is metaphorical, and Trust Guy says, "Oh, we do as the Bible says," but most of the Bible describes him in a metaphorical way, which is not an exact way, which is not a literal way of how he looks. And out of his mouth went a sharp, two-edged sword. So, are you saying to me that Jesus, took out of his mouth a sword? It's really funny. Was there like a sword in his mouth? He took it out. Like it's very funny. You don't see that in pictures well. And his countenance was as the sunshine in his strength. Now I want to go to another thing. Most of the dreams, Paul says in 2 Corinthians chapter 11 verse 14, Paul, who wrote the New Testament Bible and who Christians follow, he says, "But I am not surprised. Even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light." So Paul is saying that even if you see in your dream that a guy comes like Jesus or like an angel or beautiful, right? He says that Satan himself can disguise himself in that way. He's able to do that. Satan himself is able to do that. All right. So I want to go back here in Revelations. It says his head and his hairs were white like wool. What does that remind us of? Like wool, right? What does that remind us of? All right. Let me show you what that reminds us of. In a hadith that is sahih in Sunan Abi Dawood, narrated Ubadah ibn al-Samit, the Prophet Muhammad said, I have told you so much about the Dajjal, Antichrist, that I am afraid you may not understand. The Antichrist is short, hen-toed. Hen-toed doesn't mean that his toes are like hens, but his toes are separate from each other. They're very, very wide, right? So he looks like disfigured. Woolly haired. So the Jesus that they believe in is actually the Dajjal. You know, it says here, his head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, right? I will get to the one, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. I will get to that part, and I will show you how Dajjal actually, when people used to see long ago fire coming out of his eyes. Now, of course, Dajjal was a wizard. And there are many history things that he lived at the time of, he lived in the time of Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam, when the jinns were able to work for Sulaiman alayhi salam. And at that time, there was a wizard who actually got married to a jinn, and they got, basically, Allah created Dajjal through these two people, through that man and that jinn. And Dajjal came out as, half, right? And Dajjal was a wizard, basically like a wizard. And I'll explain that through more later, through details. I'll explain through the video in more details how Dajjal looked like. And the people used to see actually through his eyes like fire, flame of fire, right? So as you can see here, one-eyed and eyesightness. Now usually the word awar in Arabic doesn't mean he has one eye and not a second eye. No, Dajjal has two eyes. But awar in Arabic means that one eye, basically the right eye, is basically closed, or basically he cannot see through it. It can be opened as well, but it's basically like, it doesn't have a sight. It doesn't have light. He can't see through the eye. It can be open, but he can't see through it. He's blind through the eye. And awar can also mean, like, for example, someone threw a rock at someone's eye, and his eye stopped working. It stopped opening, right? It got closed forever. Or basically he got, cut in the eye, right? This is what awar means. It doesn't mean one-eyed. Awar means he has two eyes. So basically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not awar. When people say, oh, Allah is not one-eyed, oh, they're making him close to Dajjal. No, that's not true. Allah is not awar. Allah has two eyes. Dajjal has has two eyes as well, but one that he is blind in. Allah is not blind in neither of his eyes. He has two eyes, and he's not blind in these two eyes. He can see, perfectly with these eyes. And of course, his eyes are not like the eyes of the humans, right? ليس كمثله شيء. Right, but basically this is what awar means in Arabic. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala basically said, you are under innaka tahta ayunina, right? You are under our vision or under our eyes. Ayunina is more than one, so it means Allah has two eyes. Now the thing is, that eye is described either awar, either it is closed, or either it is open but does not function. He's blind in it, right? And neither protruding nor deep-seated. If you are confused about him, know that your Lord is not one-eyed. Now again, know that your Lord is not awar, right? It's not awar means that it does not literally mean that, oh, he has one eye and not a second eye. No, it means know that your Lord is not blind in one eye, right? Or does not have a defect in one eye, or that one of his eyes is disfigured, right? That's what it clearly says. You can clearly see the descriptions of their Jesus that they're mentioning in the Bible is actually Dajjal. And when Dajjal actually comes out in that shape, they will, basically follow him, right? Now, I'm going to explain through more that, after we expose trust God, now I'll explain through the story, or through detail the story about Dajjal. Now, basically, to explain a little bit more before we get into the story of Dajjal, basically, at Dajjal here, as you can see in Sahih al-Bukhari, that the Prophet Muhammad said the terror caused by al-Masih al-Dajjal, or another narration, that Dajjal will not enter Medina or Mecca right? And at that time, Medina will have 7 gates, and there will be 2 angels at each gate guarding them. Now, I want to mention something. As you all know, the Shi'as are also waiting upon a person whom they call Al-Mahdi, right? They also believe, the Rafida, they believe that when that Mahdi comes out, he will go to the grave of Abu Bakr and Umar. He will resurrect them from their graves, and he will crucify them. And the graves of Abu Bakr and Umar are, basically they're buried right beside the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in his Masjid Nabawi in Medina, right? Now, Medina, Dajjal will not be able to enter it. So the problem is that this is what they believe. For this cause, Dajjal will not be able to enter Mecca and Medina, to not be able to do that to Abu Bakr and Umar. And by that, Allah, they believe that Dajjal, that their Mahdi is able to resurrect them, just like we believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give Dajjal the ability to resurrect a man, right, and to resurrect people by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, as a test, as a sign. But he will also use jinns to go enter bodies, right? And at the same time, he will also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring back the souls to the bodies of some people as a sign that he will resurrect them, basically, right? Now, if we go more here in Sahih al-Bukhari, as you've seen, the Christians, they always have this popular picture of Jesus being white and having long hair. And it's different than the Jesus that we have, because Jesus, when he descends, he will look like Urwa ibn Mas'ud, the companion of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And Urwa ibn Mas'ud was dark complexion, was brown complexion, right? And Isa will be dark complexion like him. So, narrate Abdullah, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ mentioned the Masih ad-Dajjal in front of the people, saying, Allah is not one-eyed, while the Masih ad-Dajjal is blind in the right eye, and his eye looks like a bulging out grape. The Prophet said, while sleeping near the Kaaba last night, I saw in my dream a man of brown color. Right? A man of brown color, which is in Arabic, Rajulun Adamun. Remember, Adam means dark colored or brown colored. The best one can see amongst brown color, and his hair was long that it fell between his shoulders. His hair was lank, and water was dribbling from his head, and he was placing his hands on the shoulders of 2 men or angels while circumambulating the Kaaba. I asked, who is this? They replied, this is Jesus, son of Mary. Behind him I saw a man who had very curly hair and was blind in the right eye, resembling Ibn Qatan, an infidel in appearance. He was placing his hands. Now, Ibn Qatan was actually a Jew from Khuza'a, from the tribe of Khuza'a. Okay? He was placing his hands on the shoulders of a person while performing tawaf around the Kaaba. I asked, who is this? They replied, the Masih ad-Dajjal. And when Masih ad-Dajjal comes back, he will be a Jew as well, which is the Christians believe that Jesus was a Jew. So, we believe Jesus was a Muslim. Like I said before, when I mentioned the story that at that particular time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed that man who married a Jinn lady, a lady type from the Jinn, she got him a kid which was half a man, half Jinn, which was actually a Dajjal. And what supports my claim is the one in Imam Ahmad narrated. Jabir ibn Abdullah said, the Messenger of Allah said that the Dajjal will emerge at a time when religious commitment is low and knowledge has decreased. Then Isa bin Maryam will descend just before dawn and will call people, saying, so Isa will say to the people, oh people, what is stopping you from coming out against this evil liar? So Isa will tell the people, what has prevented you to go and fight this Dajjal, right? They will say, this man is a Jinn. Right? They will say, this man is a Jinn. We can't kill him. We can't fight him. This man is like a Jinn, right? This man is going back and forth, back and forth. Yeah, you might be saying, oh, this man is a Jinn. No one was able to kill him. This man has some type of power which we have never seen before, right? This man does miracles, like type of miracles. The man brings back the dead, right? This man is he has some, there's problems in him. He looks different. He looks scary. He looks like this type, right? So yeah, this is what the hadith explains it a little bit more. Now maybe that was the time when Dajjal when Allah willed that this, because usually what we call is that al-jinn al-ashiq, which means basically the romantic jinn, which is basically a jinn that mostly affects the woman, possesses the woman. Because the woman, when they're naked, for example, that jinn is attracted to the body, so he comes in it. Or when a woman is, for example, looking at the mirror and seeing how beautiful she is and thinking of herself beautiful and loving that, the jinn will come in her eyes. And basically that romantic jinn will give her like dreams of romantic, or basically sometimes that jinn itself will turn into a man, will meet that woman somewhere and will say, come to this area, come to this area. And the woman will look at him, he looks so handsome, right? So that woman, at times she would go, for example, to these abandoned places, right? And she doesn't see that place as abandoned or horrifying. Instead, the jinn basically gives her like a mirage that this place is beautiful, there's sofas, there's this and that. But in reality, in actuality, if many people have heard that their daughter says there's sofas in that house, there's beautiful things, I met that man, I met his family. If they would go to that place, that same exact place, they'll see abandoned. There's no sofas, there's nothing, it's dark, it's horrifying, there's nobody there, right? And you'll see, for example, sometimes their daughter is naked in a room there. Is naked in a room doing something like having intercourse with that jinn. But it doesn't mean that they will have offspring, because Allah doesn't allow it right now for basically the jinn or those to have offsprings. But basically a person should be careful of these types of things and always do the adhkar. And especially when they're looking at the mirror, you should say MashaAllah, right? Looking at this, say MashaAllah la quwwata illa billah, or A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, so that the jinn does not affect them. And that sometimes when their mind is wandering off and they're loving their body, it happens to man as well. And most of these cases of possession is because of the jinn al-ashiq, which they call most shuyukh see the jinn al-ashiq, like the romantic jinn. Basically this is why the problem is that they possess them, right? But basically what I want to show is right now I'm going to go on through the video, but I think I mentioned this hadith. Yeah, I mentioned this right now. I'm going to go on with the video, inshallah, explain in detail about the Dajjal. Coming right now to the story of who a Dajjal is. Now, going back through history, we know that the people of Al-Ahqaf who are mentioned in the Quran, and there's a specific surah called Al-Ahqaf. Al-Ahqaf means the sand dunes. So basically, the sand dunes, this particular place is between Rub' al-Khali, between Yemen, between Saudi Arabia. Al-Ahqaf means the sand dunes, which means the big sand mountains. So basically there's a lot of sand, and if you go to Rub' al-Khali today in Saudi Arabia or in Yemen, you can see the sand is all the way up. It's like an ocean of sand. There's a lot of sand there. There, the people of Al-Ahqaf are actually Qawm Ad, the people of Ad. And from the people of Ad came the prophethood. Prophethood came to the people of Ad, right? Prophethood was a prophet that came to these specific people of Ad. And as I said before, the Hud is the grandfather of the Arabs, meaning the Qahtanite Arabs. Banu Qahtan. Banu Qahtan are originally Arabs from Yemen. These people existed long before Prophet Abraham. And these people were basically tribes, Qawm Ad. These were the specific Arabs. The Qahtanites were Arabs living in the Jazira al-Arabiya, in the Arabian Peninsula, before the Jews moved. Now this is why most Jews, they try to fool you. They say, the Arabian Peninsula is ours because there's a lot of Jewish tribes there. Well, hold on, there's people who were before you. There's the people called Al-Badi'ah, not Al-Badi'ah, Al-Badi'ah, which is specifically the people of Ad, Qawm Hud, right, and Qawm Thamud, right? These are and Ya'rub, Banu Qahtan. Qahtan, the term Arab comes from Ya'rub. Qahtan had a son, his name was Ya'rub. Ya'rub basically was the son of Qahtan, and the term Arab came from Ya'rub or Ya'rub, right? And basically the term Arab means Bedouin, right? The Bedouins, because Al-Badi'ah were specific tribes which were Bedouins in the desert, in the Arabian Peninsula. Ya'rub, the son of Qahtan, wanted to build the Kaaba, right? Because basically, who was the first to build the Kaaba? Prophet Adam. And it was, destroyed and built, destroyed and built, destroyed and built until the time of Abraham. He built it, and Ismail, they built it again. and specifically was destroyed and built again, destroyed and built again. To the time of Prophet Muhammad, it was built again on the hands of Prophet Muhammad and his tribe after it was flooded, and then it was destroyed and built again, destroyed and built again. Basically, the time of the Khalifate of the Sahabi Abdullah ibn Zubayr, it was rebuilt, right? So Ya'rub, the son of Qahtan, wanted to rebuild the Kaaba, but Hud, Prophet Hud alayhi salam, forbade him. He said, you're not going to be the one, because there will be a prophet, which is Abraham, to come afterwards. He will be the one who will build the Kaaba and will set the foundations on it. So, as we know before, Qawm Ad, people of Ad, they had Nabi Hud alayhi salam to be there for them. Qawm Thamud are actually the people of Salih. Prophet Salih was sent to Qawm Thamud, which were basically, they were called Qawm Salih. They were called Ashabul Hijri, which is mentioned in the Quran, and they were also given a name Adan al-Thaniya, the second Ad. Now Allah mentions the Quran, وَأَنَّهُ أَهْلَكَ عَادًا الْأُولَى, Ad, the first Ad, وَثَمُودَ فَمَا أَبْقَى, and then Thamud. Thamud is the second Ad. The first Ad were the people of the Ahqaf, were the people of Hud. The second Ad were actually people of Thamud, which are the Qawm Salih. Now, to go through details, in that place, specific place in the Ahqaf, the people of basically the people of Ad, they basically they rejected the message of Hud alayhi salam, and they said, bring us the punishment, right? Bring us a punishment. So Hud alayhi salam told them that there will be a punishment, etc., etc. So a portion of the people of Ad, they left to basically the western sides of the Arabian Peninsula. They left the area. The adab, the pain came to them, which were 3 years of, they could not find water. The disbelievers of the people of Ad, there was 3 years they could not find water. So they decided to build a well, and the well is also found today in Hadramaut, which is called the well of Barhut or Burhut. This well is digged, as you can see in the picture, in the image. This well is built in a way that is not like, because the people before, they were giants and they were like built people, and they were different than the people today. This well was not built by the Jinn, this well was built by them. They start digging a well, which is Barhut, so that they may find water, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was punishing them without them finding water. While they were building that well, while they were inside that well, they hid some gold. They had some gold there, they hid it, which basically that they hid the gold there because they thought that, oh, if we're not able to find water here, we might have, or food, we might have some gold left, and we might leave the area and go to other places and basically use this as a living, pay as money, right? So they had some gold there. While they built the well and they were down inside the well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent basically clouds above them. They said, هَذَا عَارِضٌ مُمْطِرُنَا, right? These are clouds, مُمْطِرُنَا. But Allah says, rather it is a painful punishment in it, right? Basically a strong wind. And this is why the basically, Iran, for example, Allah says, أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعَلَ, in Surah Al-Fajr, أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعَلَ رَبُّكَ بِعَادٍ. Have you not seen what God has done to the people of Ad? Iram, specifically, Iram ذات العماد, Iram of the pillars, the lofty pillars. That's why they say today that Iran is hidden somewhere, is covered by sand because of the huge punishment. It was covered by, and the huge wind, it carried out, like made a huge sand and covered the area, covered that place. So, basically this is what happened. So now, when they built it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the punishment on them, and they basically died inside that well. That's why the Prophet Muhammad says in the hadith that the best water on the face of the earth is ماء زمزم, is the water of Zamzam, is the well of Zamzam. فيه طعام طعم وشفاء من كل سقم. It has, basically it's a food, and basically it heals from, every disease. And the worst well, or the worst water on the face of the earth is in Hadramaut, is in Yemen, بئر يقال له برهوت, right? In a well that is specifically called برهوت. Basically in it, there is أرواح الكفار. There are the souls of the disbelievers. Now this does not mean that the souls are there, but this is specifically the meaning of the hadith, that the souls of disbelievers are there. Basically they died in there and their souls were taken out in that specific well. And there's basically each person in his own grave is able to experience the barzakh. His soul is able to experience the barzakh. That's why he feels that the grave becomes green, and if he's a pious person, and if he's a bad person, his grave becomes a hole of fire. And this is basically the hayat al-barzakh, the life of the barzakh, which is both na'im and jahim, which is both, the hayat al-barzakh for the believer is a minor paradise, and for this believer is a minor hellfire, right? And then the real hellfire and the major hellfire and the major paradise will be after, in the day of the resurrection, when Allah resurrects the people in soul and body. They will be able to enter the real paradise, the major paradise and the major hellfire. And that's why specifically the Prophet Muhammad, when he was on an expedition to Tabuk, they basically went through the people of Thamud had well there, right? Because the people of Thamud moved basically to the western sides up north of the Jazira Arabian. They basically had a well there, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala basically punished them there, the people of Salih. And so there was, basically the Sahaba used to knead the dough with the water, and they used to, drink of that water. The Prophet forbade them, said, don't drink of that specific type of water, because they were forbidden, it's haram to drink from it. The people were punished from this water. And so basically, the people, left away all the water and all the things. The Prophet Muhammad, however, told them that you can drink from Bi'r al-Naqa. And Bi'r al-Naqa, the well of al-Naqa, meaning the well of the camel, was known till the time of Ibn Taymiyyah. After Ibn Taymiyyah, it became unknown to us where the well of Naqa was, because of the change of the environment, the change of societies, the change of buildings. Basically, things have changed. And now we go to the story in the book of Kitab al-Zaman by Al-Mas'udi. Okay, what he basically says is that the people of Iram of the pillars, Iram specifically, he was from the people of Ad al-Ula, the first generation of Ad, not of Thamud, because Thamud is the second generation of Ad. Iram was the one in the first generation of Ad. He had an offspring that remained, basically the offspring that remained, and he had two sons. He had one son, his name was Huwayl, right? Which got in love basically at that time to a jinn, right? And I'm going to make it clear again. What happened before in the first generation is not what's happening today. Today you can basically people get married to a jinn, but they cannot. It was only the ability of some people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them the ability, that Dajjal came through from a man and a jinn, through a man marrying a jinn, and he got sons there, right? Huwayl was actually the father of Dajjal, and Huwayl got married to a jinn, got in love with the jinn, and he got married to her. He got two sons, two children. One of them is called Shiq, and the reason he's called Shiq is because he's like Shiq in half. He's a half person, right? He's half human, half jinn. And you can see the hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari about Prophet Sulaiman when he says, I will have intercourse with 100 women, and this you get a lot of offspring. But he forgot to say inshallah, so he only had a son from all these women. He only had a son that was half boy, like he's in half. Part of him is not shown, only one part, right? So it was possible at that time, at that generation, at these times, because even it was possible at the time of Prophet Sulaiman, he was able to command the jinn, he was able to communicate with the animals. The animals actually worked for him, the jinn worked for him. Now, today you can't go to a cat and say, go work for me, go there or go here, and come and tell me what they're doing. You can't do that. That's impossible for us. So Shiq, basically was a half man. He was the famous sorcerer in the Arab lands, the famous sorcerer known in the Arabian Peninsula. The other son was called Khus, and Khus was, when he was born, he looked disfigured. He basically he was awar. He had disfigured eye, or only blind in one eye, and people, when they looked at him, they saw in his other eye a white fire. Now this is why it's similar to the Bible, how they say Jesus, his eyes, through is coming, is like fire, right? There was a white fire coming out from Khus's eyes. And Satan used to take care of him, because basically his father Huwayl was married to a jinn. If he's going to come half from a woman, half from a jinn, the jinn are going to take care of him. And there's also a Yemenite sorcerer. There's a video you can go. He's famous right now. You can go on Nabeel Awadi's what's his name? Yeah, Nabeel's Sheikh Nabeel Awadi, his channel. You can learn about. He has an interview with that Yemenite dangerous sorcerer. This sorcerer, when his father was a sorcerer, he inherited sorcery or witchcraft from his father, because before his father was gonna die, his father basically told the jinn to take care of his son and to make his son the chosen one to do that, to continue on his work, the witchcraft. So basically the jinn took care of his son, and they started to make him, he started to see the jinn, and they basically tried to make him work for his dad, continue on it's called like a wiratha, inheritance, something inherited from his dad through the jinn. You can go find his story on YouTube, and you can find it through Salafi Imams talking. He has many interviews, and I watched the whole story of him. And it's basically mentioned here. Basically this guy who used to have a tent close to the well of Barhut. Now before I go there, Imam Shafi'i actually says that there are wells or places of water which is forbidden to drink from. The first one is the one when the Sahaba were marching to Tabuk, place of basically Thamud, the water there that the Prophet or the Sahaba not to drink from. The water of the people of Lut, and some ulama say it is the Dead Sea, which is the people of Lot were destroyed. And the last one is the well of Barhut, which is basically the well in Yemen and Hadramaut. So it's forbidden to drink from these wells. This is what Imam Shafi'i said. And basically Khus lived, basically he lived in that tent close. He had a tent erected close to the well of Barhut, and the jinn used to come to him, basically do things with them. People used to come to him, for example, for if they want witchcraft, or they want him to tell them the type of the unseen. And the thing is, Shiq, his brother, he once saw a dream, which is what the book says. He once saw a dream. Sorry, not Shiq. The king of Yemen at the time of Shiq had a dream. So he told Shiq, because he was a famous Arab wizard and fortune teller, he told him, I had this dream that basically there's going to be an Abyssinian king ruling Yemen, which is actually Abraha, right? Abraha, the Al-Habashi, the Ethiopian king who wanted to destroy the Kaaba. Basically at the Am al-Fil, at the basically generation of the elephant. So yeah, he told him about the dream that there's going to be a prophet coming, and there's going to be this prophet will stay forever in that place, and he will rule the east and the west and the Arabian Peninsula, and many people will believe in him and follow him, which is Prophet Muhammad. And basically, like Ibn Kathir mentioned, that through some of the ayat of the Quran, that every prophet said that Prophet, basically foretold that the Prophet Muhammad will come. Every single prophet. And every single prophet warned against the Dajjal, right, the Antichrist. And they also warned their people that if that prophet comes from the Arabian Peninsula, which is Prophet Muhammad, then you must follow him, right? If we die, and this was the time of his coming, you must follow him. You must believe in him as well. So every generation of people, of prophets, who followed these prophets, which were pious people who followed, for example, people who followed Moses, who believed in him and died while believing in him, they also believed that they had to believe that Prophet Muhammad will come at the last, basically at the last portions of the generations. So yeah, that's what Shiq told him. And basically, Khus was living till the time of Prophet Sulaiman became a king. And Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam said, basically, may Allah give me a kingdom which no one shall inherit after me. Make me a kingdom that no one will have a similar kingdom to my kingdom. Right? This is what Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam said. Prophet Sulaiman saw that this guy was causing corruption, so he brought him to him and he said, you know what? Leave all this sorcery and witchcraft and these evil doings and evil doings of these satans, and come embrace Islam and believe in me and become pious. But this guy refused. This disfigured guy, the one who was born half from the jinn, half from a man. He basically refused. So Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam exiled him to a specific island in the Arabian Peninsula, which is basically the Yemeni Sea, and he chained him up there. He chained him in that island. And basically he heard, this guy Khus heard at the time Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam that there will be there's foretold that there was a prophet coming in the Arabian Peninsula who will rebuild the Kaaba, make people follow him, and he's from Mudr, from the tribe of Mudr. So Khus started believing, he heard that he knew it from the time that there's going to come a prophet, which is Prophet Muhammad. So when he was exiled, he was tied up to the island, and one of the Sahaba was from that specific place, from Barhut. He was called Al-Barhuti. This Sahaba, this companion of Prophet Muhammad, has heard, because his people kept saying, basically in the Arab culture, these people, the people of their generation, they pass to other generations these sayings that there's going to be a prophet coming. There's going to be a prophet coming from Mecca. There's going to be a prophet coming. When is that prophet going to come? They keep talking about this until his generation. This person was a Sahabi, a companion. He's called Al-Barhuti. He's given the name Al-Barhuti because from that specific area, from Barhut. He came to his mother basically made a gift for the Prophet Muhammad with her hands and told him, Al-Barhuti, to go there and embrace Islam. So he went to that Prophet Muhammad, gave him that gift, and basically he embraced Islam. He became one of the companions of Prophet Muhammad, and he gave a poetry that still exists today. He gave a poetry mentioning the Prophet Muhammad. Oh, we have been told from long ago, our people have told us about you, O Prophet. He mentioned that specifically in his poetry, right? So the Prophet Muhammad was happy with him, and he basically wiped his head. He wiped his head with his hand, so that right now the Barhuti people, they, till now, they are happy because their grandfather was, basically given the Prophet wiped their hands. So his offspring, the Barhuti's offspring, are happy till today that his grandfather is, the Prophet wiped his head, right? That this is like a blessing for him, or like, something that is good, right? So yeah, this is the story of that. So basically, when at Tamim ad-Dari, when one of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, he was a Christian, he was sailing in the Yemenite Sea. He was lost there for 1 month. He came upon an island. He found Dajjal there. What was one of the things that Dajjal says? Tell me about the awaited prophet. Has he came yet? He said, yes, he's come. He was in Mecca. He went to Medina right now. And he says, Dajjal says, has he won wars? Has he fought the Arabs? He said, yes, there's times he wins wars. There's times he does not win wars, right? He loses, but he was fought the Arabs. And there's many people becoming Muslim and following him, right? He said, the Dajjal said, it is better for these people, the Muslims, to follow him, or everyone to follow him. And then he says, now I'll tell you about myself. I am a Dajjal. So Khus here is a Dajjal. The Dajjal's name is Khus. He was born from Huwayl. His brother was Shik, which passed away, but Dajjal still till today he's living. And he's given the opportunities to do things from the time of Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam till today. And eventually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him the ability to do it till the end of the hour. This is why we mentioned the hadith that when the people, they'll come say, Hada Jinni, right? The people at the time of Isa alayhi salam, when Isa comes back, Prophet Isa comes back, the Prophet Isa will say, why have you not done anything? Why have you not fought the Dajjal? They will say, he's a Jinni, he's a Jinn. We can't fight him, right? He has like powers, it is impossible for anyone to kill him, right? So now we have mentioned that, and this is basically a story. You can find it, as I said, in Kitab al-Zaman by Al-Mas'udi. It's an Islamic book, a history book. So this is basically a thing, and this is why it is important to study it, because the Jesus they believe in is actually a Dajjal which will come. and as like described, the Prophet described him with woolly hair. They described Jesus with woolly white hair. The Dajjal was, described in the book Kitab al-Zaman by Mas'udi, that people used to see flaming, flames coming out of his eyes, which is also what is described in the Bible, that Jesus had like some sort of like fire or flames coming out of his eyes. And he's disfigured. Jesus was mentioned disfigured. He's mentioned that he was not handsome looking, or had no beauty, and no one desired him, right? Which is basically what Dajjal is. He's disfigured one eye. His body is disfigured, right? His legs are like kind of woolly, they're spread out, so he kind of looks like a different type of human. He's different type of human. His body is, as the Prophet described him, it's built, but at the same time it is kind of disfigured all over, right? So this is what is mentioned here. Lastly, we have exposed the. I'm sorry I took long in this video. I hope you liked it. If you liked it, please mention on the comments section. I'll give the description of that book, Kitab al-Zaman, the Islamic book by al-Mas'udi, in the description below. I'll give it, and maybe I'll put it inshallah in the comment section, as I'll pin that comment. So yeah, this is what we know about Dajjal, and basically about as I mentioned before, about the Jinn al-Ashiq, the romantic Jinn. There's a story about a Saudi person, a guy. He was out in his car at night alone, and basically on the road there was like basically an old woman, niqab and everything. She was walking on a stick, right? So that guy, usually said, this woman looks old, so I might, want to take her to see where she's actually going, and in this place that there's nobody in there. So basically, she went with him, and he told her where she's going. She said, I just want to go close to that place. So she asked him, are you married? He said, he basically said to her, why is this woman asking me if I'm married or not? So he basically says, no, I'm not married. They went on the road. She thanked him. The woman thanked him and then left. And then when she left, he basically kind of looked, where is she? She disappeared, right, in the dark. He went back home, and one of the days, that same exact woman came. He saw her. So he went and hid in the kitchen. Basically, he heard her sound, the same look, the same dress, everything. So her mom was saying, hi, how are you? How's everything? Yeah, good. The woman was asking, how's your son? Says, oh, did you really? He said, yeah. He said, I met him, and he was this and that and that and that. So basically, the woman, the Jinni lady says, is your son married? So the woman was like, yeah, this is awkward. Why is she asking him if he's married or not? So she says, I have a daughter, that Jinni woman. She said, I have a daughter that, that I want to give to your son. Will you allow me? The reason is, guys, you have to be careful sometimes when communicating with so-called jinns if you don't know if they're jinns. If they come in human form. The reason is, you never tell anybody your secrets. The second thing is, you never tell anybody if your son is married or not, or you never do that, expect to say, yes, I'll let him marry him. No. You have to discover first of all, right? So the lady was like, will you give my son to me? She says, I'm not sure. The thing is for my son. If he agrees, then he agrees. If he does not agree, it's up to him. I can't give you anything. So basically the woman said, thank you very much, and she left. The mom went there, and the son said to her, this was exactly the same woman that I took last night. She says, really? She says, yeah, she asked me the same question. She said that, are you married, or are you this or that, or are you or that? So his mother says, you know what, son, this woman lady that was here is a jinn, and it's clear cut as she sees a jinn, and she's asking you. He told her the story that he took her with her in the car and everything. She says, and this lady is a jinn because she basically saw that you were good to her, and you held her, you took her in your car, right, and you were good to her. She wanted to repay you a gift in return for you to marry her daughter, which is a jinni girl, right? So basically by that she told him, oh son, always keep mentioning al-adhkar, right? Always keep mentioning adhkar, and beware whatever you say to a stranger. because the jinn sometimes can lead you into traps, and by that people can get possessed and actually get attracted to a jinn without knowing that they're a jinn. So a person should always be careful. This is what I have to say. I was mentioning the story about Dajjal and how he was married by that. As I said before, if a person is married to a jinn today, he has intercourse with a jinn, etc., etc., or jinn rapes him or that, he's not going to have a sign from either the jinn side or the human side. This is different than the time of Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam, the time when Khus ad-Dajjal came out from. And this is only when Allah willed for that to happen, right? So this is what I have to say. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.